Hello, freshmen. This is video number 3, in which we're going to talk about specific continents, their physical features, and some specific place name identifications. Your directions with this are to take notes on the sheet that looks much like the one that you're looking at right now in the video. I've done a brief outline for you here, and we will also talk about these spaces that I've labeled in Africa for you, and also that you can see the geographic features are very well pronounced in this particular picture. But we have all this space over here in your handout as well, in which you can take extra notes. And also, I'm going to give you what you'll need to know in the future. You will need to identify cultural aspects of Africa, as well as these physical features of Africa. And you will have a quiz on place name identification, in which you get a blank map, and you'll have to put these 6 places down on a blank map without help. So let's get started. First off, Africa. Physical geography. Africa is very large and diverse. In fact, there is only one larger continent, which you probably all knew about before you heard that from me. In that desert, you can find sand, rock, and also volcanic mountains. They are not overly active like other parts of the world, but as we move down into our map of Africa, our physical map of Africa, you can see the changes in elevation through this vast desert, the largest in the world, the Sahara Desert. You can see the elevation changes. And also here in the south of Africa, we have the Kalahari Desert, another desert land there. And this map does a very good job of showing you these elevation changes and mountain ranges throughout. Secondly, in the northern coast, there is actually, and you can see how it's just barely green here, this light yellow on this coast of the Mediterranean Sea. I know this is Africa set alone, but here, if this were a map of the world, you see the Mediterranean Sea, and right about here you'd see Italy and Greece. Spain would be just about right up to there in that particular part of the map. And you would see this Mediterranean climate, very arid, very nice climate. And you can see vegetation highlighted here in green, also right here at the Nile River Delta, which we'll talk about shortly. South of this large Sahara Desert is this little bit lighter brown band. It's called the Sahel. And one of those notes that I really want you to take in this particular area is one of the biggest problems facing Africa right now. And it's really a global problem, and usable water. And this band of semi-fertile grassland, semi-dry grassland, I should say. It's not really all that fertile at all, called the Sahel. And that area borders onto the desert lands of the Sahara. And what's happening is this process called desertification, in which this desert is getting bigger. And we call it a global problem because our water supplies are getting lower and lower throughout the world. To the south of the Sahel is this area called savanna land, and you can see it's very green and there's vegetation throughout. This is where a lot of the animals that you associate with Africa, you see in zoos and such, like the elephant and lions and all that good stuff, this is where they inhabit. And then we move further south in Africa, and you can see it's labeled here, the Congo jungle. The Congo jungle, we technically make a determination that it is also a rainforest, but we call it the Congo jungle. And this is where you see like the silverback gorillas and such in that part of the world. Very hard to live here, but it is inhabited by many different people. So we've taken care of this is a very large continent. There are 2 vast deserts there, very hard to live in. In fact, in those deserts, the temperature can range from 133 during the day, Fahrenheit that is, all the way down to in the 30s at night, 100-degree swings. Here in the fall right now in our North Country land, we're getting swings at night about 40 degrees. So if you can imagine multiplying that by 2, swings of temperature that is, multiplying that by 2 and adding 20 more degrees. The northern coast, we talked about the Mediterranean climate, and it's also very good for ports because it's so irregular. We call this jagged sort of structure, we call that irregular coastline. We have this dry grassland in the Sahel, again, desertification. We'll talk more about it. And then we have the semi-fertile grassland we call savanna, where you see most of the life of Africa. The Congo rainforest and jungle is a vast part of it, and it's actually a very important part of the world's ecosystem. as we know with rainforest and jungle type areas, they provide a lot of precipitation and such. And lastly, getting on to some of moving on, excuse me, to some of the natural resources that Africa is known for. Precious stones such as diamonds, and a good reference to that would be the movie Blood Diamond, in which they discuss the many wars and civil wars and a lot of illegal activity that goes on because of these diamonds, and also precious metals such as gold and platinum. Now, also in Africa, there is a huge push. One of the positives of these are all positives for them. They are able to have economic well-being because of these. They're able to be trade partners with other parts of the world. And the hydroelectric power provides their people with power. In places that, in a lot of places in Africa, they're pretty remote and they don't have a lot of power, as we learned from Gabriel Beldang, who visited our school last year. If you don't remember, he discussed how there was a school built from the area that he was from after some civil war and religious persecution, which we're going to talk about shortly. We look here and we want to talk about culture. There is a lot of diversity in cultures due to the geography of Africa. In fact, there are 53 countries, more than any other continent. This diversity has led to a lot of different things, such as civil wars. This diversity has also led to a vast cultural background for those of Africa, and the diversity is to be celebrated. Unfortunately, a lot of those differences are not something that people are celebrating, and they're fighting amongst one another. An interesting piece of information that we'll discuss in class as to the ramifications of it is that 1/2 the population is under the age of 15 in Africa. This is a challenge as to how to educate this group of people, as they are young. It's a young country, and it's a country that's population continues to grow. Some of the societal challenges in parts of Africa are, like we had said before in our reference to Gabriel Beldang visiting us, are religious turmoil. As a result of these civil wars, religious turmoil, and the remoteness in not having as much of a access to economic well-being, there is a low literacy rate, and there's also low health care in Africa, in a lot of places in Africa. That does not go across the board. There are large cities, such as Johannesburg in South Africa, that is very, very rich. In fact, the World Cup of soccer, before the one in Brazil, was hosted there. Let's take a look here now at our place name identification. Please label these on your map. This is the Sahara Desert. One of these two particular places working together, this river system, the Nile River, and then you see the Nile River Delta here. The reason I'm having you label these two places, along with Egypt, is that they are imperative for the development of early civilization in the world and our river valley civilizations, which will be a big part of our studies of Africa. The Great Rift Valley is this large mountain range that you see here. It's actually nearby the spot, which we're going to talk about shortly, in which the first human remains were found, and the Great Rift Valley. And then also the Congo jungle. As we move further south, we see the Kalahari Desert. We are going to end our video there, but I am going to just scan Africa one more time. Go back up to your notes to remind you of anything that may have been said. Remember, you always can pause these videos. And we will see you tomorrow. Very good. Good night.